Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Prospero.ai stock market live streams. We have a bunch of great topics to talk about today, but also we're doing something special. So if you guys have been following the Prospero live streams and community, you probably know we're doing our first crowd raise on Republic. And today we're doing an AMA. So if any of you coming in here and are curious about some questions about how that is going, any of the details on it, feel free to ask us in the chat, whether you're watching on X or YouTube, and we will be happy to answer all of your questions about that. But without further ado, let me take you guys through some of the topics we're going to be talking about as well on the stream today. The markets are all in the red currently. The laggard is the Dow Jones, actually, and the leading indice on the day is the QQQ. The VIX is up about 4.5% right now. Let's take a look at the SPY and QQQ net options sentiments in Prospero. There's a big divergence going on recently, and I'm looking at it now, and it is continuing here as we begin the stream. 43 overall net option sentiment for the QQQ and 0 for the SPY. So the SPY has been down at the 0 flat line for a few days now, and there's a lot of stock making big moves today. We're going to talk about a few of them. We have to highlight Dolingo and CoreWeave. So if you've heard us talk about CoreWeave so far in the streams, it's been pretty much a bearish perspective. It had a 0 net options sentiment for a long time. It looked really bad in the upside and downside signals, but that is all switching. If you go in the Prospero app right now, the CoreWeave upside and downside trend series graphs look very, very interesting. Big shift in those, so very cool to see. Hello, George. Welcome to the stream today. So we're going to talk about both of those. Then we're going to get into Palantir stock, which actually just got hit with the Jim Cramer curse. So we have to take you guys through that and see if it's going to be affecting the mighty Palantir. We're going to talk about NFL taking a stake in ESPN. Crocs down 26% today. Why is it down so much, and how has the valuation plummeted so low? We have a single-digit PE for Crocs at the current moment. An IPO in the market launching today, Firefly Aerospace. We've seen the CoreWeave, Circle, Figma IPOs go crazy, so we want to cover this one today. And last but not least, Intel. The new CEO job might be in jeopardy after Trump criticized him, but perhaps for good reason. We're going to bring up a perplexity breakdown of the situation as well. But like I said in the beginning also, let me just say it one more time as people are rolling on in here. We're going to be doing an AMA of our Republic crowdfunding today. So everybody, if you're curious and haven't heard some of the details about it, feel free to ask us on Twitter or YouTube, whatever you're watching on. And we'll address your questions as quickly as possibly and as thoroughly as possibly. But I think as people are typing in the chat, we should start with the overall markets, George, today, because there's a lot of stocks making big moves. You know, you look at the QQQ right now, it's almost flat on the day, down only 0.06%. But many of the high flyers in the market, like Oklo, Joby, Roblox, and many other of those like higher valuation, bigger growers, are down a lot today. So what do you think is the trigger for that? And how are you feeling about the overall markets today?
I mean, it was a really, really interesting day in the market. We're going to get to some of those reasons for it when we talk about, CoreWeave, and some of the other ones. But, we were a little more worried yesterday, and then QQQ net option sentiment went up. And we started feeling better about it. But, the market is showing, it's shown a lot of resilience too, but it's also showing more weakness than we've seen. But we've kind of seen this concern when we have QQQ and SPY net option sentiment kind of bifurcate. Like we've seen it be a good, a bull thing for the market. It also is, always concerning to have SPY net option sentiment at 0, because that means institutions are hedging pretty heavily.
So we have a question from Jonathan asking regarding the new alerts that are coming to the app, have they been back tested? If so, what is the win rate? Also, what will the alerts be looking at? A big change in net option sentiment? Question mark.
So they're looking at moving averages. And the tricky thing about this question is when we look at the individual moving averages, a lot of the times there's just like absolutely insane results, like a moving average of like 10% or more in net option sentiment from one day to the next. Like we're talking like beats of, multi hundreds of percent annualized, and win rates above 60. But as we're looking at, like, we're trying to send out one alert a day. And in the biggest, highest conviction pick. And that is a little harder to test and report on because based on certain market conditions, it changes from day to day. On a lot of the groupings, so we could do like different groupings, right? Because basically we're creating this meta tag system that says like, okay, QQQ is going in certain ways. So that is, so that means we can put up this kind of tech thing. And each of those kind of individual cohorts all perform very strongly as well. And like the blended things are kind of insane, but in terms of how good they are. But backtesting is always a lot more difficult. Backtesting versus live testing are very difficult things. So I don't want to over-report, how insane those numbers are and then have people to be disappointed. But needless to say, backtesting is always a lot easier. But the one thing that, that I think is important to say, I was kind of the only, I've said this before, I was kind of the only user of the Prospero app for like the first 3 years because I wanted to make sure it really worked with me. Because if I couldn't use it well, I didn't have any hope that anyone else would be able to. But this is a similar thing. We've been working on this for like 2-3 years, and we've been we've iterated on it. One of the things we were actually planning to release it last summer, but one of the things that really delayed us was this idea that we actually had tons of these good moving averages. But we didn't necessarily have a way to say, this is our best pick. And we didn't want to be firing off 10, 20 alerts a day because we didn't think that was that useful. So actually the process of slimming it and still making it highly accurate was an important part for us because, one of the things that we know for our newsletter that's hard for people is that we're giving too much information. So we really wanted to whittle it down to that one single strongest pick. And actually we're using as we've expanded that, we're using some new technology. We're actually integrating LLMs into that process, integrating live data from the markets into the process, as well as our signals, as well as what it's learned from how I think in the newsletters. We've ingested that. So that's all like really cool. The performance is excellent, but I don't want to overpromise.
Now hearing you explain it more, I feel like the screener in the Prospero app is almost like a nerfed trade alert because it updates you. I think you update it manually, but pretty regularly. And it gives people a list of some of the best stocks for whatever the current environment of the market is on any given day. So people got to be checking that screener every day in the app. If you're not right now, let me re-highlight our AMA thing here. I wanted to also bring up two very good use cases of the Prospero signals, Duolingo and CoreWeave. So if people have watched our streams, they've probably heard us talk about, or you mostly talk about CoreWeave in a negative light so far, but things are changing in the Prospero app. So let's get into that. And also Duolingo, another very powerful trend chart in the app to watch it like crazily predict the good earnings reaction. So let's hit on both of those stocks.
If you go check it out, Duolingo is a pretty cool one. And advertisement for our trading letter, by the way. We've added Duolingo on 7/31 because we basically, if you go back and look at those time series graphs in the app, you can see that it really elevated. Downside went down, upside went up, net option sentiment went up. It looks like institutions were really, we wrote a letter on it today about like how we found it and also how like we actually used some generative AI to confirm the thesis. Another kind of slam dunk for us. I only wish that I hammered it more, maybe had multiple positions or anything, because it really did seem like a slam dunk, and it's been in Momentum Score and the trading letter, a number of times. It's been a mainstay there. And CoreWeave is looking to be the most interesting thing that's ever happened in Prospero. And I think those are must look at graphs. I believe upside went from about 40 or maybe 30 a few weeks ago, all the way up to 80 today. Downside basically flipped in the reverse. And net option sentiment was fixed at 0, but pretty much in the last 2 days, it went up to 11 and then it went up to 29. And you're probably like, George, I can't believe you added a stock with 29 net option sentiment. Normally that would be a no-go. But, one of the things that I actually learned from the alert system is net option sentiments, even if they're moving from, 0 to like 15 or 20, that could be that's like a huge bull signal. I don't normally do it. And, this was a perfect storm where the upside and downside movement was just so compelling that I was like, I don't want to miss out. I don't want to be late on this. And then you can see the short pressure, right? And the last check that I made is that the borrow rate is still at 145%. And what I loved about this is with some softening in the market, I think CoreWeave as a short squeeze, if other stocks underperform, I think it could do very well. So I actually kind of viewed it as adding it today as a hedge if the rest of the market goes down. But, fascinating from the start. We only started, I think we have like 3 or 4 positions in CoreWeave that were, over 20% gains. We only got into that because it had net option sentiment 0. And for a tech stock to have net option sentiment 0, especially like a large cap tech stock, that's super rare. If you just go in net option sentiment 0, a lot of the times it's ETFs because people hedge with those, or a lot of the times just like companies with not a lot of options interest. Maybe it's in like, maybe it's a consumer brand that's on the downswing, like whatever. It's you rarely see a large cap tech company that low in net option sentiment. Like as a data point, like if I'm shorting Taiwan Semi or Micron, right? I'm looking at like a 30 or 40 net option sentiment there, and that's viewed as a very bearish net option sentiment for a company in that space. So yeah, it's really, really compelling, right? Because CoreWeave, short squeezes, those kind of things are not things that I traditionally touch. But the Prospero signals made it so compelling and obvious that this has the potential to be the best case study for Prospero, right? If we were short yesterday, right? If we flip long today and time that upswing perfectly too, I mean, you can't do it. You can't do any better than that.
It is pretty fascinating too that the timing is aligning with that 100 level that you talked about weeks ago in the stock. But I have a question for you because I feel like this is good for explaining people. Like one of the harder things is to know what the signal levels, like where's bearish, where's bullish, and the longer you get in the Prospero community, because like the different tech stocks, banking stocks, real estate stocks, they all have different kind of levels of that. So what you're saying of like the net option sentiment going from 0 to it's at 29 now. So, it's tough to say in a percentage starting from 0, but let's just say 1. So that technically is like a 29x over because it increased from like say 1 to 29. So if it was at, 60, say, and it went to 89, that's it. What you're saying is like that move isn't as bullish as this one since it had such a low starting base and it's like a percentage increase more. Is that correct? Or could you explain it more if that's not the case?
So I think the important thing there is just getting to know a stock, right? And the more you get to know the stocks, like, yeah, I have some of this information because I've looked at them. Like I know what's good for Micron or Taiwan Semi. So I have that comparison point. But like, that's what we always advise people. Like I have that mental map. And that's what makes me so dangerous with all this stuff. Like that's what Prospero signals do, right? They condense the amount of information that you need to remember, right? Because the fact of the matter is, like, if I was talking about the same things and I had to remember, like, what the technicals typically look like on Micron and TSM, and where their PEs or their, a bunch of their other, like, I'd never be able to contain all that information, or even what their options chain normally looks like, or where, social center, that, like, it gets a very big problem very quickly. But the way that we shrink the problem is the important thing. And that's why, like, I can't do a knowledge transfer to anyone. Like, I can give frameworks, like, one with net option center where it's like, yeah, I don't like it to go down 10 or 20%. I can give that framework, for a long. But at the end of the day, like, I say it all the time, and I love to say it because I've been saying it for years and no one's ever come back. It's just like, if you use Prospero for a year, like, I promise you will not come back and tell me that it didn't make you better. It makes everybody better. And it's just building that map, right? That's all that it is. You're just being like, okay, I know what the levels are. I know what the levels are for, the competitors. Like, I know where this is, so you can place it. Like, because that's the most important thing. It wasn't just that CoreWeave was 0. It said that I knew that companies like CoreWeave never get even close to that number. So that's why I was willing to throw in, even though, like, my only regret was I first went into CoreWeave at, I think it was like 165. And I saw it was at one point near 190, and I didn't short more. That's my one regret, that I didn't have the guts to do that, because that would have made it even better. Net option sentiment was still at 0. I got in my head about the borrow rate. Maybe it was going to be a short squeeze, and, maybe I could just catch it higher. But still, a great result and a great risk managed result, right? We didn't risk it getting out of hand. But yeah, there's, I can give you levels, and Gilbert, yeah, not a bad idea to jot down, especially when I'm doing a knowledge transfer, like specifically what I look for on a specific stock. And I'll tell you all day long if I know it or I don't. But yeah, like, for example, like, I only looked at momentum score on Duolingo. Like, had I been watching these graphs closer, like, and looking at the time series, I could have easily wrapped my head around 2x or 3xing it going into those earnings, because, like, I wasn't aware of just how much it departed from its levels, and that's the powerful thing.
Yeah, and it'd be funny if now with CoreWeave looking more bullish, if you wrote it up to 190 and you got another chance and they flipped again, that would be something crazy. But Gilbert is also asking about Palantir. So he says, I know you emphasize net option sentiment signal for short term. How strong do you feel about the technical signal? I've held almost all of my Palantir because of the 100 technical, in spite of the net option sentiment drop, which has gone from the high 90s down to 62 now in net option sentiment for Palantir.
I mean, how are these, like, we put in technicals because I think especially the time series on it, if it's going up or down, is important. But what I've always not liked about technicals is they're not a leading signal. They're a trailing signal, right? A lot of these things, or they're saying what the typical behavior of a stock is. Like, I wouldn't read, like, of course, Palantir, like, look at the run it's going to be on. Like, it is a foregone conclusion that it's going to be high in technical flow. That doesn't mean that you should read into it any more than that. Like, what I think technical flow is valuable for is like a 40 to a 60 move, or maybe a 60 to an 80, because then you're just like, oh, I've been watching this. It's trending in the right direction. That's where, that's where I really think it's important. I think you really have to take this down, like this downward move in Palantir and net option sentiment very seriously. I know people love Palantir and it's been on a glorious run. But when a stock that typically is very healthy in net option sentiment, like it's been, makes this kind of move down, it's for a reason. And you know what? It could just be a lot of people taking profit on their options. It doesn't necessarily mean the put demand has grown. It could just mean like people were playing it and they're taking on their options. But the fact that they took them off and aren't putting new ones on, might be indicative. It's not a kiss of death. Like, upside is very high, but no, I would be pretty surprised if, like, we might have net option sentiment recover. And that's an outcome that could happen. And in that case, I'd probably get back in. But if it doesn't recover, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a move down for Palantir at all.
So I was thinking about Palantir, and I feel like a thesis came into my head of like, oh, maybe this is the possible path for Palantir. So I feel like Amazon was one of the leaders in the like .com bubble, now that it's history. But during that, phase where all those stocks were running, and it had its crash, but it still, became the company it is today, recovered all and then some, and obviously is a dominant company, and all of the rest is history. Do you think Palantir could be on a similar path where they're going to be, everybody knows they're a great company, they're going to be one of the best performing stocks, they're going to have a very large pullback at some point, but that doesn't mean they're not a bad company, and they're still going to be like the Amazon path where they'll recover to all-time highs again? Do you think that that's a possible likely outcome of this Palantir story? And then also, I can't not mention this on the stream today. Jim Cramer this quote is being thrown around now of how he said Palantir is currently today dramatically undervalued. So I don't know if that's the kiss of death or what, but how do you feel about the Amazon Palantir connection? Do you think there's anything to that?
I mean, I definitely have more confidence that I'm right about the pullback with Jim Cramer. But no, I don't really see the parallel. I mean, Amazon was never nearly as overvalued. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head, but I would bet it's, forward trailing whatever PE would never even really approached what Palantir is. They're very different businesses, right? Anything with consumer goods is going to have a challenge getting to higher valuations. I mean, it is definitely one of the more highly valued, and especially on like a forward PE basis, companies in the consumer cyclical space that I've ever seen. But it's apples and oranges. I mean, apples and like, the biggest thing is, I think with a company like Amazon, I would be more sure that there was a correction coming when it started to get overvalued, because it doesn't have like, I think when you look at Palantir, other than it just being in the right place at the right time and not really having any real competition, those two things are very powerful. But when you have this like alignment with the government, that it has, that's just like, it prevents you from getting rid of your shares, right? And saying it's like, because you could be like, hey, it's due for a correction, except there could be some, $2 billion contract announced with the Army tomorrow or something along those lines. And I think that's what keeps people in it. That's what keeps people, not selling, keeping their long-term options on, because it's for something like a long-term option, and it makes total sense that it's an 100 upside, right? You have, you've got something that, maybe the short-term options you're getting rid of because you're like, it's a higher probability that this might go down, and I could lose 50, 60% of the value of this option in a couple day span, right? That's not as true for long-term options. So it does make sense that you'd leave them on if you were had some concerns for short-term, or even steer more of your, it's at 100. So it could even be a situation where 100 upside. So it could even be a situation where, it can't go any higher, but we actually had a lot of the, short-term options contracts closed out in favor of long-term ones.
So we have a lot of people watching, and I want to mention one more time in case you missed it in the beginning. We're also taking questions today about the Prospero crowd fund that's currently going on. So if you missed me saying that and you have some questions on it, just feel free to let us know on X or YouTube, and we'll be happy to answer. As people are hopefully typing, I wanted to bring up today the story I saw about the NFL taking a 10% stake in ESPN, which Disney was reacting to positively, but as the market kind got a little more volatile today. Let me see Disney. Yeah, Disney is still in the red. Disney has been trading sideways for going on like 12 years now. So does this make you feel any more confident that maybe Disney can break out of the range it's been in for so long?
I mean, I will say this: like we've been hard on their streaming business, a bit, but it's that has recovered. But I still don't like. I mean, I still don't like Disney that much. Like even saying that about the streaming business, I just don't think they have the catalog to be real competition in that business. They just basically made it like they're just turning it into not a bad investment. But yeah, I just think that we're definitely getting numbers that tourism is down here. That's definitely, a lot of people value it, or then they expect it to be worse. That a lot of people value it on that basis. And yeah, it's I kind of think about this similarly to how I talk about Apple, even though it does seem like Apple's alignment with building factories in the US is, at least in the stock market in the short term, paying big dividends. But I just don't, Disney used to be like an innovation hub, just like Apple used to be. And that's the thing that just makes me not bullish overall, and always kind of see better alternatives. They can get stronger, whatever, but they're not an innovator. And so I just don't think there's any potential for big positive catalysts if you don't know how to innovate, and that's not your strength. So that's my big issue.
Now I have an interesting question. Disney is trading at about a $200 billion market cap right now. I tried to look up, as you were speaking, what's the market cap of the NFL. They're private, so there's no exactly known one. What I got was that based on the value of the 32 NFL teams, it's around 163 billion. But I don't think that takes account of the whole business of the NFL. Do you think the NFL would have a higher market cap than Disney if it was a stock?
That's interesting. What is Disney's market cap? I mean, I don't 202 billion. I mean, what am I thinking? I think because the teams, I was like, you can't throw the value of the teams in there. So that definitely makes it challenging. No, I don't think it's higher, because I'm just doing some back of the envelope calculations. I think the TV deal is in the multi-billions. But I don't think that's enough to get I think Disney still be higher.
So Yitzy's in our comments asking about any good recommendations for a buy now.
I mean, I honestly think with the market looking a little soft, I honestly think the most interesting buy, I mean, I'll give my same boring answer as Meta. I think Meta continues to be an interesting buy. But my higher risk, high reward is CoreWeave, right? If you haven't looked in the app, go look at that trend. It's crazy. I've never seen anything like that move so quickly. So no, I don't like what's going on in healthcare. The whole healthcare sector looks bad today. It's looked bad a lot recently. I don't too risky. I mean, where I like healthcare is if it bottoms out a lot more and we can figure out some resolution on what's actually happening. Yeah.
So another stock I'm curious on your opinion on is Crocs, because they are down now 28% today, and they're trading at one of the lowest valuations I feel like I've seen in the market that since I've been following. They currently have a PE ratio of 6. They had decent earnings, but they had a cautious guidance, and they guided for a 9 to 11% decline in revenue for Q3. But with such a low valuation, I feel like there's a lot of pain priced in. Can it go much lower from here, trading so cheaply?
How does it look in the signals? I mean, Crocs is a weird one because like not too long ago, it looked really good in our signals. And I actually also remember it looking good, but being like, that's a weirdly high valuation. So yeah, I don't know what's going on with this thing because it's still very profitable. Like it's got a 0 technical flow score. Yeah, I don't know what everybody's so sure about. Like that it's bad. I don't know what I don't know here.
So it'll be interesting to follow it. Maybe they're one of those like retail companies that has the tariff problems going on if they manufacture a bunch of their stuff overseas. Yitzi is also asking about CZR. It's been down a lot the last few days. What's your opinions on it?
CZR. Doesn't look good. Yeah, bad signals. Yeah, I don't like it.
I had a follow-up for the Crocs thing. I got distracted by the CZR. If I think of it, we'll come back to Crocs. But let's move on for now onto Firefly, which before we get into the topic, let's see. It's a new IPO today, so let's see how it's performing. So currently up 42% on the day from its initial IPO of offering of $45. And we've seen so many IPOs recently go crazy. CoreWeave, Circle, Figma. So Firefly is a rocket ship manufacturing company. They have partnerships with Lockheed Martin, L3Harris, and Northrop Grumman. Also won a $177 million contract from NASA. Let's check out their market cap. They are currently trading at around a $9 billion market cap. Any interest in this company since it's in that interesting sector we've been covering a lot with Rocket Lab, ASTS, of that space infrastructure? How do you feel about this company going public?
Yeah, I mean, I think like could be a great time. Like, is Lunar the same thing or is that different? No, that's different. I'll get Lunar in. We actually just got a system online to add tickers. So I'll look at Lunar. But yeah, I mean, in theory, I'm kind of talking myself in to getting involved in that IPO, right? Even before, because it's just like IPOs have been gangbusters lately, and that's a huge one. When does it start trading? I might just take that for a ride.
It's actually live right now. It just went live today.
What's the ticker?
FLY. Fly.
I don't see. It's not giving me. What? It doesn't even have. Oh, yeah, doing well. I'll add it. I mean, sometimes like Figma took a dip the second day. How's it doing now? I haven't checked it.
So Figma is currently trading at $78, down 13% today.
Yeah, this would suggest that you don't necessarily want to take it for a ride.
Unless, you know what I always wonder when there's stuff like this, like, because people are basically trading the IPO not for the company just because of like the momentum they see. So does Fly going public take from the Figma? Like, there's only so much attention and room when there's like that specific reason people are trading or investing. So is that what's happening? Like they're moving on to the next one from Figma to Fly?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's the same thing we see. Like, that's why it's like, meme stocks are difficult too, right? Because you just don't know when someone's gonna when it's gonna be just enough loss of momentum that the crowd is just gonna crowd out. And like, by the way, like the big problem is like when the crowd starts going out, all the institutional robots get out before like a lot of people can get out, even if you have a stop loss. you're going to be in behind all the institutional robots. They're seeing the same things as you. And by the way, they're seeing where all the stop losses are, right? So they know exactly how fast it's going to start falling when it does. And they're going to sneak in right before you. So, that's what makes all these very dangerous.
So a question from Mario. I consider myself an active investor as opposed to a trader. A lot of comments are geared very short-term moves. So what is the difference between the trading EMs versus the investing ones?
What I don't know what EM stands for.
Let's see if we can get a clarification from Mario. Did I hear you say you could add tickers like instantly by the previous question as well?
Oh,
emails.
Not instantly, no. Like I added Figma, and I don't know what it's not foolproof. Some of the early ones they'll have it's still not a perfect system. But I added XYZ yesterday. There's some that I added, and they're just there the next day, so that's nice. A lot of them. We're at a pretty high hit rate now. Okay, so I'm always going to be looking right out in front of me immediately. We actually just wrote the letter last Sunday. The letter last Sunday is explain this a little bit about how we think about things. And, the first thing I'm going to say is, and I said there, we've back tested upside breakout, over a 5-year period, and anything above 80, we tested portfolios where we held it for a year. And 80% of the days we tested holding the basket of 80 or above upside stocks for a year outperformed the S&P, outperformed that portfolio. So that's all to say, anything we add in the long term, we like long term. And anything above 80, you can feel pretty safe owning for a year. The one caveat is, I think if you see it go up a lot, you might want to take profits. But what we do is we minimize risk. And we I say this all the time, but we'll do something like switch out AMD for NVIDIA because we don't want to own 2 chip stocks. We like them both. AMD just passes NVIDIA in the signals. We're switching it out, right? We take things out, with minimal losses. And that's actually a good question. We take things out when there's minimal losses. We minimize risk, right? And a lot of the times that might be churning our portfolio. I'm actually making an effort to churn it less because I think there was people that had trouble following it. But that's all I'll say, Mario. Just take from the emails what you want, right? Buy the ones you want. Don't buy I view both letters as idea generators, and trading is going to generate a lot of ideas, especially in the daily letter. They're just idea generators. Take what you want. It's anything I add on the long side, I'm saying, it's generally above 80 upside, and that generally means you can hold it for a year. Whether or not I'm dropping it, I'm just dropping it because I prefer something else. And that's how we get such high returns, but it's not necessarily a practical way for other people to approach it. All right. Palantir, 600%. I would sell half. That's personally what I would do. I would sell half. And if you want to maybe take 10% of that half and throw it into some long-term options, right? So you might actually get a similar amount of upside, while taking profits. That would be what I would do. Or what I might do is take it out. And then, if you're a little more worried, maybe sell puts. Sell puts at 20-25% below where it is. That way you could say, hey, if it goes down 25%, I'm good at buying more because I think I like the long-term story. But yeah, you could always buy puts too. That's not my preference. If you don't want to sell anything and pay taxes on it, that's an option. Just buy a little insurance. But no, I wouldn't, with net option sentiment at 62 and the way it's going down, I wouldn't do that. And Yitzy. No signal's perfect, right? No signal can see anything, like especially when you're talking about news with a healthcare stock. But like it's been high in the signals. I haven't even had the inkling to add it to my portfolio. I think healthcare is way too high risk right now. And you see that. Like I don't think a year ago the reaction to that headline would have been as strong, but people are very worried about healthcare right now. And that's the difference. Just because something is an R pick in an app, that's just reporting that it has high net option sentiment and high net social sentiment. That's it. Like every stock that has high net option sentiment and high net options and high net social, I don't view as a buy. And like it's so important. Like if you were to want to buy something like Eli Lilly, right? You would have to be saying to yourself that I think the headline risk of this stock is overblown and it's a good value and it's not going to have headlines affect it, right? You'd have to buy into that if you bought, like you have to be able to consider those kinds of things. And that's what you're buying into, right? So when a headline comes and it doesn't perform, like I would actually say there's a known problem there, right? That you can choose to take that risk and maybe get a reward or expose yourself to that risk. Personally, I didn't expose myself to that risk for that very reason, because there is a high reward in healthcare and UNH, like why right now. But there's a larger risk. And that's why I wouldn't touch it. Those picks are just singling out positive relationships in the signals, but they're not telling you that something should be bought or not. Like when I add something to the newsletter, that's what I'm saying. I believe in this stock on top of the signals, but that's very different than taking everything in our picks and adding it. In fact, I would explicitly advise against that, right? A lot of the times just adding a bunch of our picks would put too much risk and too much, tech or consumer cyclical concentration in their portfolio, or just too much risk. Like high net option sentiment and high net social sentiment stocks also have risk to them. That's why it's important to filter on top of that.
Very well said. And I wanted to bring up this stock also after you said about the ease of adding tickers, because I don't think it's on Prospero right now. The ticker is USAR, and it's called USA Rare Earth. And I've seen MP Materials stock just go insane recently. And this is another stock very similar to it. And I feel like there's not a lot of stocks like that are like USA Rare Earth metal based companies. So it's an interesting one for sure. Also, I want to bring up Intel stock on the stream today, because the new CEO just is having a rough day today, I'm sure, after Trump called for him to resign. And my question for you was going to be like, well, how can the company not fire him then? Because we've seen this alignment with companies that are close to the administration do well. So, it would just only hurt them to not. But then you shared with me this perplexity prompt of, does the Intel CEO have a conflict of interest? And I didn't know any of this history for him, but extensive history investing in Chinese companies, over $600 and $200 million total. And he was also the CEO of Cadence Design Systems from 2008 to 2021, during which they illegally exported sensitive semiconductor design tools to China's National University of Defense. So maybe Trump does have a point with this one. Maybe he should step down.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially that design thing is interesting. And you really wonder like what Intel was thinking. Like with that, like you'd think that's a very basic background check. And someone having worked for a company that's been guilty of corporate espionage, like that seems really, really dumb on their part. But it just shows how important it is to fact check. Because I think a lot of people are inclined to say, if Trump says something, it's not true. Like personally, I would want to fact check everything. And I want to fact check anything that any politician says, by the way. But that's why it's so important, right? I just did a quick check and I was like, no, this seems absolutely right. So that's why it's so important to do your own research, as we always say.
I know it's about time to do the switchover, but I have to say, like, this story is funny because you could never flop the countries and be like, and switch it to like where a USA citizen got like charged with this in China and then was CEO of another China company after that. It's like it could only happen in America, which is kind of hysterical. The fact that it could
It's
happen.
moronic.
Yeah. All right, but we'll do the switchover now. We'll do the model portfolio. Thank you everybody for watching the topic segment of the stream, and we'll be right back with George on the other side. We also appreciate all the AMA questions we got today about the Prospero crowd fundraise that's currently happening on Republic. Let me actually see if I can get a link for you all. I think I should be able to add this link. If you're watching on Twitter, I'm currently adding it in the YouTube chat. So hop on over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button if you're making the switch over to get the link. But if you're curious on checking out all of the details in one place, I just added the link so it's easily accessible for you all. What we're going to do now, if it's your first stream, we've had a ton of viewers here, so welcome everybody to the community. I hope you enjoyed. Hit that like button if you did. George is going to make live changes, so you're going to get to see what he adds and drops in the portfolio today. Looking at the signals, which currently is a paid-for product in the newsletters, but you get to see it for free at the end of the stream. So that's why you stick around to the end. Let's take another look at the QQQ and SPY net options sentiment levels. The QQQ has actually gone back into the green on the day. All the other indices still in the red. All right, let's check in on net options. So currently QQQ is at 46 in net option sentiment, and the SPY is still at 0. So a very, very big divergence, probably just about as big as we have seen in all of 2025 so far. So it'll be a very pivotal day of managing the portfolio. So it's going to be very good to see what George decides to do. Let's take a look at the short-term bull list and see if there's any interesting companies that haven't been on there before. I see NVIDIA, Meta, Roblox, UNH, JD.com, Oracle, Adobe, Apple, HubSpot, and Geo Group. I think all semi-regular components. Adobe maybe a little bit of a new addition there. I'm not sure if I've quite seen them before. Jonathan said, what did you see that made you want to add your favorite stock, Robinhood, today? We'll see how George decides to answer that. I'll take a look at Robinhood in Prospero right now. I know they've had pretty strong signals for a while.
Yeah, Robinhood was just, I mean, you can look at the screener. Robinhood was like number 3 on the screener. When I released that new one. But beyond that, like, I'm generally just looking for the right time to add, like, you know, at any given time, I've got my favorites, and I'm just looking for the right time to add my favorites is really all that it comes down to.
So Robinhood is your favorite now.
Well, it is, unfortunately. I mean, it's not my favorite company, but it's one of my favorite stocks. I just think it's got a really good future in front of it. I don't think it should, but it definitely does. Those are two very different things.
What Elon always says, like, I think the most entertaining outcome is the most likely. What if Robinhood acquired Prospero one day?
Yeah, I don't think that's happening. I don't think that's happening. I don't think they won't try. But it's not happening. Okay, let's get here. I already pasted this.
I guess it'll have to be the reverse. Prospero will acquire Robinhood, maybe. Maybe I got it backwards.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
We got a question from Steven in the chat. What do you think about Oklo before earnings with the screener having it up?
I think I have an Oklo position that I'll keep, but I think that's enough risk for me. Okay. The one sacrifice I really make on these streams is I normally get to do this on my other monitor that has like a much higher resolution. So I never get to see these as well. Did I get this? No, don't want to go there. I think we're done with this.
Well, it's looking like what you said on Monday is still true. The buy the dip market is continuing because as we're heading to the close, everything's kind of heading back up right now. Bitcoin's also up 2.5% today.
The buy the dip market. That's what we've got. I am a little concerned with this trending now. Is CVS a win? I mean, I think I want to drop it anyway.
CVS loss currently.
By how much?
1 point. Ooh, it just flipped.
To a win?
Win. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, we'll hope that holds.
Maybe my thing was just like not needed to load in.
Yeah. Maybe. So we have 34, 42. Yeah, all right. I think I definitely want to add more. Oops. All right. I think I'm going to target some bears here. Oh, wait, I didn't ask you what's SPY and QQQ net option sentiment.
So QQQ is at 45 and SPY is still 0.
Surprise, surprise. Dolingo now the top. think we have an open shack in the trading letter, right?
We do.
What industrials are taking a hit. All right, so why not just do a couple more? One energy. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so we can add a few. We can add rows. I think NBIS is like the one going crazy today, right? Yeah. Don't want to get into that too late. Apple continues. We'll wait on that stuff. All right. I'll get one of those. Does that work? I forgot we wanted some. All right. Maybe for a little bit of diversity, we'll take this very low real estate company. All right. That'll flip us a little more short. All right. Perfect timing. And then we will just take a look at where we're at on these too. Huh. The day softened a little bit. Too bad. All right, that all looks very good. I think we have a meta too. Yeah. Taking it on the chin with Dell. Yeah, that's a little high. Okay, both of those. I think we might want to get out of both of those. Yeah, SYNA. Yeah, I think it's time. I think it's time to get out of both of those. And then what are we going to get in? Let's take a look at some of these. Oh, yeah, that's more of a trading letter thing. Interesting. What's going on with AVG? Okay. We'll get ABT. How about MIDD? Yeah, I like this MIDD. Yeah. Very interested. What about ATR? These all look good. All right. I think that should be good. Ooh, that's compelling. Not too compelling. Yeah. Well, I think I'm satisfied with that. I'm just going to record these moves. Hopefully, people aren't angry about this being too many moves. And yeah, I'm excited to see CoreWeave. That's going to be interesting.
CoreWeave ended the day at highs of day at $121 per share.
I know. At some point, we're going to have to like stitch together with timestamps, like me saying 100, saying option sentiment 0.
Yeah.
There's a good. All right. Any questions? Otherwise, we're going to wrap in a second.
No new questions in the chat, but I think this could possibly be our most viewed stream. We're up to 5,600 total views today. So thank you, everybody, for watching.
Yeah, I mean, while we have everybody, any questions about the crowd fund?
I also shared the link in our chat for anybody who's curious, reading through it all. You can click on that.
Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, George. We'll be back normal time, Monday, 11 a.m. See you all then. Bye, everybody.